Hi, this is Siofra's Magic Alcove, and this is Siofra Bradigan. So, as you can tell, we're in a different location. We're on the other side in the south of the usual view that you get when we do videos. So we've got, we're trying a few things out and just to see how that goes. And there's a couple of subjects that people have asked me to talk about. So, which should be the first subject? Now, all right, so I guess I will talk about what I mean when I say the universe. That was one of the most recent questions. And it's just sort of the term that I use to describe what I'm thinking about. So it'd be a good idea for you to know what it is I'm actually thinking about and what I mean by that. I think it's a good question because a lot of this path is about developing a relationship with the universe, learning how to communicate with and listen to what the universe has to tell you. So, what is the universe? And it's like, obviously, the universe itself, the physical universe that we know, is so incredibly vast, and there's so much material out there that it's an incomprehensible amount of existence. It's like the physical universe covers trillions of galaxies and many, many, many more than that, stars and potential planets, etc. But basically, the universe is existence, everything that exists, not just materially, but everything in existence, which includes the part of the universe that we can't see and interact with, the 85% of the universe that's composed of dark matter that we, at this point in time, do not have any way to directly communicate or measure or so forth. And right now, I'm beginning to think that that 85% of the universe that is there that we know exists that we can't see may be what the spirit world and the beings and so forth that I encounter, that's what they are. They're part of that material, which could explain a few things, like the fact that I experience beings on every planet that we have in our solar system, even though I know that we're the only ones at this point that has physical manifestations of life, but there's other expressions of life that are not physical. The idea that the universe is self-aware, that it's in everything, every cell, every atom, everything in existence is imbued with some form of self-awareness, um, and that is an intelligence that we can interact with and get reactions from and so forth. I personally do not think of that concept of the universe as being a unified consciousness that's aware of us. There's too much in existence, in my opinion, for that to be consciously aware of our individual existence, the minutiae of our lives, the things that we do. It's not like somebody, sitting in the sky and watching every action that we take and then deciding whether that's a good action or a bad action. I don't subscribe to anthropomorphizing the universe. It is just all of existence, everything that is, and that the awareness that it has is in that it senses our actions, our thoughts, the things that we put out to it, And I know I've described this as like kind of like a membrane of awareness, of energetic membrane, and the things that we do hit that membrane and then create ripples, energetic movement, and so forth in it that it then responds to. So it's not like omniscient in the sense that it's paying attention to those, like I said, minutia of what we're doing, but it gets like the core, the energetic imprint of our actions, and that is really what karma is about. Karma is neither good nor bad. Karma is simply a response to stimulus from the world, in this case, our world, and it creates certain pathways and eddies and things of that nature that then create responses either later down the road that that then come around and come to us. We can see that kind of happen in our lives when we look at places where we've changed. Like if we decide that we're going to change who we are, how we respond to the stimulus in the world around us. In the beginning, things will be confusing. It's not going to like happen right away. You can't just one day wake up and say, okay, now everything's going to be different, because you already have all these forces in motion that are moving towards us from things that we've already done and started. And so when we decide to make a change, it takes a while for it to manifest itself on our level. And so in the beginning of that kind of transformative stage that we're in, we've got all of the old stimulus that we've already gotten started, like the people that we've attracted to our lives, the people we've chosen to have a part of our lives and interact with, and that kind of thing. They're there already and they've sort of been established, and now we're going to change and be different than what all those people and so forth, forces, etc., are used to. And in that transitioning, things are going to collapse, fall apart, get chaotic. I think chaotic is a pretty normal reaction for the universe to have when we're shifting from one state of awareness and consciousness and so forth to a different state of being, existing, interacting with the universe. So the people that are around us before we change are not going to like the fact that we're changing, because people like to be comfortable in their situation. Even if it's an uncomfortable situation, having things be the same is more comforting and more comfortable than having things change. So the so they're going to try and stop us from changing so that they don't have to think about what we're doing and all that jazz. And we're moving towards a different place where we're going to start attracting different kinds of energy, different types of people in different circumstances. And it's like, you're going from one bundle of interactions and interconnectedness, and you're undoing your thread. You're taking your thread out of that, and then you're putting it in here into a different space. And most of this stuff isn't going to come with you. It's going to go away. It's going to leave eventually. It just takes that time. And then you're going to make new connections over here, and you're going to have a different group of people and different kinds of experiences and so forth happening to you. So it's like talking about the universe is vague. That's one of the reasons why I like sometimes working with deities, because they're a little more precise in what they're doing. Now, deities are, in my opinion, real, and part of the universe, but they're like a more focused interpretation of one aspect of the universe. Whether you believe that we created them or they exist on their own, I certainly experience them as something separate from me, and how they got there, who knows for sure. But they are like this more codified and narrow interpretation of the forces of the universe in that respect. And so they're easier to hone in on, and to get assistance for specific kinds of changes that you're trying to go through, and get a little assistance, a help with that boost, riding their coattails, I suppose. And that's one of the things I like about paganism in general, really, because everybody, I mean, there's like so many different kinds of God and goddess forms that are out there, that no matter what it is you're going through, there's some force that exists that is sort of on the right wavelength to assist you with what you're doing in order to move yourself from point A to point B to point C, and sort of transform your life into something that you want. I think that most people don't actually become aware of the fact that they are partially responsible for everything that happens around them, in the sense that how they choose to respond to the forces that are around them give the universe a message on which way they want to go. So if like you have a thing here and you always push it in this direction, you're always pushing the same direction, eventually that push is going to make this thing move in that direction. It's the same with feelings, thoughts, emotions, ideas, concepts, perceptions of reality, and so that is what the universe is going to respond to, that push, that shift in your focus and awareness and interpretation. But most people just sort of go along with the flow that exists when they're born. And people are born into different cultures, different religions, different economic status. Some people are born into poverty, some people are born into wealth, some, everybody and everything in between. And these are all factors in how they interact with and perceive the universe. And if they're not consciously aware of the fact that you can give a little bit of a pushback there, or a little nudge in this direction or that direction, then they just go wherever the main current is, and wherever the main current takes them is where they end up. So if they're born into a family of artisans, where everybody in the family is, pursuing a specific type of job, whether it's, a craftsman kind of thing, or creative thing, or scientific thing, whatever it happens to be, it's not important what it is. It's just that being born into that flow, and you already have all those connections and interactions and so forth that have evolved with the family line, and all the focus that the adults have and the relatives have around that concept. And you just sort of go with the current, go with the flow. And so that circumstance leads you into following a specific path. And most people aren't going to question that. If, however, you're born odd, the odd person in the family, and you don't fit into the stream, you've brought something with you that is like contrary to the general energy of your family and your community and your religion and so forth, then you're like a burr, you bother everybody else. You're not smooth, you don't fit in, they don't like it. Makes them have to think. And then generally it's those people that are the ones that are going to like either change the circumstances that they're born into and transform the people around them, or leave the circumstances and go off on their own and do something completely different, and are often the black sheep of the family because the other people can't really comprehend what they're doing and why, because they haven't thought about it. I mean, the unconscious and the subconscious are the most of what we are. Uh, we're sort of like the universe in that respect, where 15% of the universe is what we can see and interact with. That's probably even less than that as far as our consciousness is concerned. And most of it is under the surface, and people don't have access to it and don't even think about it, or aren't aware of the fact that it's there and don't question it, even if they are. So it's in my interaction with that idea, that I develop what I consider my language with the universe, how me and the universe communicate with each other. It's like being aware of changes in my particular area, my field that affects me. If something shifts in it, sometimes even pretty far in the future, I can get a sense that there's like a wave coming from the future into the past that's going to impact where I am. And then, if I'm lucky, I can plan a little bit ahead, or at least be consciously aware of the fact that something is coming. And then if I see a place I really want to be, something that is important to me, then I can position myself and sort of nudge myself in that direction and start to make energetic moves that go that way. And that's how spells work at their core. Really, what it is you are interacting with that fabric, that membrane, or whatever, and you're putting out this program, this desire, this need, with instructions, and you're putting those instructions out there, and then you're following that up with action. Because if you just spew it out and then don't do anything here in the physical plane, then you're not going to be ready to receive it when it does come, if it comes at all, if you're not really doing the work to get ready for it. And that's one of the reasons why the shadow work is so important, because it helps us to know who we are exactly, and what forces and energies and things like that we're putting out to the universe that it's reacting to. I think that people experience it a lot and just don't put things together. Like, they're in a situation that's going to be dangerous for them, and they have an idea that it might be dangerous, but they don't really understand how dangerous, or how it's going to be dangerous, and they're not taking care of themselves or something like that, and they're going to get really sick if they don't change what they're doing. And then all of a sudden they take a fall, or they get sick, and they're forced to sit still, and in that sense they avoid the bigger thing that's heading in their direction, or their unconscious is trying to stop them from doing something that it considers really bad, or stop them from doing something it considers good, in the sense that it might be good for the overall evolution of the spirit in the person, but the unconscious doesn't like it because it's change and doesn't want change to take place, so it gets complicated. But really, I think of everything that exists as being alive and aware. So that's the concept of immanence, that everything is there. There's no such thing as separate. I'm not separate from the chair I'm sitting in the sense that I'm better than the chair. I'm just different than the chair. But the chair is just as many sacred molecules or atoms or whatever in it as I do, because we're all made out of the same material. We're just a different organization of the same material. So yeah, it's kind of weird. I know it definitely works for me. And sometimes it's just very direct. I mean, the relationship I have with a wider part of the universe assists me in figuring out what to do, where to go, how to behave in some cases, what to watch out for in others. But even minor stuff, I've started noticing, like Tuesday this week. Um, my entire community was in a good mood. I mean, everywhere I went, I was on a path, I was on a stream of complete and total uh, non-resistance, and everything was flowing with me. Like I found the sweet spot in the river with just exactly the right current to get me everywhere I wanted to go with the least amount of effort on my part. Traffic was with me, traffic lights were with me, people were friendly, talkative, approachable, helpful. It was quite a nice day. Didn't last because, then another day happened, but it was notable. I was like, hey, I got myself in the right stream, left the house at exactly the right minute to get all this stuff happening and done and encounter all these different people. And it was nice for a change because it's not always like that. And then there's other days when I leave the house and I'm a block from my house and I've got two cars already cut me off. And I live on a small street with very few cars. And I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to be experiencing when I go out there, so I'm ready to have people racing around and cutting me off and doing stupid things and not paying attention and so forth, so I'm on alert. But that's because I'm paying attention. I'm not taking it personally. This has got nothing to do with me, either the good day or the bad. It just happens to be that that's where the energy is, that's what the stream is that I happen to get into. And if it's really bad, then I can turn around and go back home and just wait it out and go a different time, which I have done. It all really depends. So I think that the more in tune you are with those kinds of energetic shifts, the more likely you are to survive a life or notice warnings when they come up, like something is not quite right. But we then have this tendency to want the universe to be talking to us all the time and knowing who we are and trying to get it to give us signs or what have you. It's just, I don't think that's really the way it works. Sometimes you might get one anyway. And we have definitely had that. I mean, when Ian, when we were given his staff that he has now, and he decided he really didn't feel confident that it was his staff and that he deserved it, and didn't think that he could correctly choose the absolutely right crystal for the top of the staff because that was the thing that was missing. And he handed it off to the universe to let him know if this really was his staff or not, that the universe would find a way to guide him to the crystal for his staff. And within 2 days, he walked into the Salvation Army and found the crystal for 50 cents. Beautiful quartz crystal. They had it as a paperweight. It perfectly fit his staff. I was impressed. I mean, I was like, wow, that's asking a lot from the universe, but it did it because it was his staff, and the universe responded to that. And that's sort of like, that's how, when you've got the authority to be able to get certain things done, like when we did the evocation last week. We did it with our staffs. We didn't use our swords. So I had my staff and he had his. And that's kind of like our resume calling card, energetic signature for who we are and what we've been through and where we're at. And the universe goes like, okay, I know who you are. All right. So, I mean, everybody has to come up with what works for them, obviously. And some people are more comfortable with the idea of having a more hands on, directed kind of deity that is paying attention to what they're doing and telling them when they're being bad or good or whatever. But yeah, that's just not me, and I don't think that's actually Ian either. We sort of have very similar idea of it. We express it in slightly different words, but I think at the end we're talking about the same thing. This would be the concept of oneness, of the totality of the universe that is not understandable by the limitations of the human mind, and the unknowable, because we're not the entire universe, we're only a small part of it. But like I said, that's why I like the gods and the goddesses, because they're a little more precise on certain things. So I don't know if this helps really at all in understanding what I mean when I say, talking to the universe or checking in with the universe or what have you. It's just the word that I use, and there's probably other words that would work as well. I think of magic and walking a magical path as being aware of the streams around you, the energetic streams, the invisible rivers, the forces, the tides, the changes in how things are moving around you psychically, energetically, planetarily, all that stuff, and just trying to be as aware and alert as possible so that I avoid going over the cliff before I'm ready. And considering how much I've survived so far, it seems to be working for me. But in the end, language is not the thing that works for explaining this. It's experience that works, which is why we talk a lot about going out into the woods and sitting on the grass, leaning against the tree, experiencing other forms of consciousness to help us comprehend the larger picture of the universe being not just humans. We're very egocentric as a rule, and getting away from that egocentric sense of importance and how our needs are more important than anything else's kind of thing. I think getting away from that helps us to actually have better quality experience with the universe and with life itself. It gives us a broader perspective on everything that's out there. And we're all, experimenting as we go. I mean, each one of us has got to figure this out on our own. There's no actual book you can follow in reality, because it's your relationship with the universe, and it's the language that you speak and understand of symbolism and your experience with energy and what it is and how it works and so forth that determines what you get out of it. And the farther down the path you go, the more information you glean from those more subtle changes and inputs and things. So that's probably enough babbling on what the universe is, I think. And hopefully, I never know how to explain some of these things, because they are, a lot of times the concept is below conscious level. Interactions and so forth are almost beneath the language, the ability to speak. That's why meditation, I guess, is important. Getting acquainted with ourselves. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. And this is Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. Blessed be.